Today I'm going to talk about 5 phases. The term in Chinese is wuxing, which better translates as phases or steps, but is often translated as elements, partly because of the vague similarity with the 4 elements of Greek philosophy. These are in Chinese 5 phases: metal, wood, earth, water and fire. And they have 2 sorts of relationship, one of which is called the Shang cycle, which is the generating relationship, where one phase gives rise to the next. So then you have a mother phase and a child phase. And then there's the Ke cycle, the controlling cycle, where one element has a controlling and influencing effect over another. Okay. The qigong I'm going to share with you now is part of the 5-phase qigong that I learned from my first Tai Chi teacher. It's quite a deep kind of qigong, which is what they would call Nei Gong, inner work rather than external. So the Dao Yin practices are more to do with health, stretching and flexing the body. Nei Gong is more to do with internal health, internal medicine, or potentially spiritual practices and meditation. Okay, so a lot of it is about the awareness, being really in the moment. This set is fairly simple. I've seen other 5 element sets out there which are much more complicated. They all have a kind of similar vein. I imagine that as things get distributed through different teachers, some teachers tend to simplify and some teachers tend to expand on similar forms, so you end up with lots of variations. But yeah, this is one of the simple ones, and the sequence goes along the Ke cycle. So first of all, it starts with metal. The metal phase is to do with the organs of the lung and large intestine, and then according to the systematic correspondences of Chinese medicine, it also has pertainment to the skin. That's its connective tissue relationship. The colour, white. The autumn, grief, and thereby it's kind of about letting go. The lungs take in air and they let air out again. So there's kind of these emotional, spiritual and physical correlations. Each of the phases has these correlations and they all kind of fit together quite neatly. First off, as with all the qigong, we have to set up our root, our base. We want our feet to be planted, knees bent slightly, relaxed, and you want to make the feet parallel. That means second toe pointing forward. So there's actually, it might feel like your feet are slightly further inwards than they are normally. Relax the shoulders, and we're breathing into the belly, but without allowing the belly to flop. It's not a completely relaxed belly, it is a stable belly. But as you breathe down to the lower abdomen, to dantian, we will hopefully feel that your ribs start to move here. So I'd like you to put some awareness into the breath, the root, the feet. Shift your weight so that most of your weight's going behind the big toes into the midfoot, and bring the hands together in front of the chest, about 1 inch apart. Then you're going to breathe in and out. So as you breathe in, legs straighten a bit, not to the point of being completely straight, they're still soft, and the elbows are moving sideways. Fingers are extending, reaching towards the ceiling, the sky. And try imagining a magnetic attraction between your palms that you're pulling apart and bringing back together again. Remember to keep the weight behind the big toe. Don't rest into your heels. This ensures a balanced activation of the channels and the body. Can you feel the ribcage moving sideways? Good. Settling down there. Bringing your attention back to the center of the body, midway between the navel and the back of the spine. And we'll come to the next one. So, to continue our 5-phase qigong lesson, remembering this is Nei Gong, just inner work, a lot of it is about bringing your attention into the body. The correspondences for the next piece, which is for wood, are that it's related to the liver organ. The connective tissue that's associated with is the sinews and tendons. So we'll often see the liver points in acupuncture used, the liver and gallbladder indeed, points used for stiffness and tightness in the tendons. And a lot of the moves relating to the wood element involve spirals and twisting, because the channels are on the inside leg and up the abdomen, the liver, and then the gallbladder channel, the other wood channel, goes down the outside of the body here. So you can see it as controlling spiraling movements, rotation, movement in the transverse plane. Its associated emotion is the anger. So we also consider that irritability and anger are big signs of liver dysfunction. And it's associated with the colour green, which makes sense for wood. Has expansive energy like spring. We're thinking of things growing in the spring, trees spreading out, growth, leaves becoming abundant upon the trees. Okay. Metal controls wood, and so this is going along that controlling cycle that I mentioned at the beginning. So we'll move on from the end of the metal element phase, which was here. On the out breath, we'll come back to that position, and the wood move is simply that we lengthen our arms and we make a circle. It's breathing in, breathing out. It's like you're moving your forearms around a giant ball. And again, we're making sure that the weight is behind the big toe and that the feet are parallel. second toe pointing forwards so that there's a balanced activation through all the channels of the legs. And we're breathing in, breathing out, massaging the liver organ and moving the rib cage. We're moving in a relaxed way. See how you can find strength in the structure at the same time as being as relaxed as possible. Big circle. We're reaching a little bit through the fingertips. And we're stopping where the hands are in line with the shoulders here. And at the bottom when they're in line with the hips. Front of the hip bone there. Forgive the noises, we've got a school nearby. They must be having a kind of activity day or something because it's the summer holidays at the moment. It sounds like a lot of children playing a very exciting game. Weight behind the big toe. Knees soft, breathing in as you're coming up, breathing out as you're coming down. Okay, going back to centre, focusing on the point midway between your navel and your spine. This is not Dantian, this is Wu Ji, which is the undifferentiated centre of potential energy before separation between yin and yang. It's a Taoist thing. I think it's less spoken about than Dantian, but it's the centre. Rest there, allow the thoughts to come and go. Make sure you can let go of them. The thoughts can come and go, but you do not have to attach to them. Qigong. Thank you for your time. We now get to the earth element. Wood controls earth. You see the sort of logic there. Metal controls wood, the axe cuts down a tree. Wood controls earth, the roots hold earth in place. Sometimes, if you think about deforestation, you cut the trees down, topsoil can get lost. The correlations with the earth are the digestion. The spleen and stomach are the earth organs, which also you can think about as being like a foundation of health. It's where we get our energy from, just like the earth gives energy to the plants. The connective tissue side of it is the flesh. So the correlation there is about the muscle tissue, really, muscle and fat as opposed to the sinews and tendons. And the emotion is overthinking or pensiveness or worry. All of those things get attributed to spleen deficiency. And the colour is yellow, interestingly. Because it's about the digestion, the focus is on the abdomen. So, setting up once more, we're getting our centre of gravity behind the big toes. Activate, make sure you can feel the legs working in a balanced way. Shift your weight back and forth until you can feel that the backs of the legs are working. You're not just resting in your quads. Feet in line with the shoulders for this one. And we finished the last one, the liver, coming up here, the wood, I should say the wood really, because it's wood, not liver, it's liver and gallbladder, the wood element phase. And as you come to here, you'll then bring the hands in a circle in front of the abdomen. So what you want to be thinking about is lining up the palm of your hand here, which is the point pericardium 8, Nei Gong, in a triangle with a spot about 2 inches below the navel, 1.5 to 2 inches in a triangle, equilateral triangle. And as you breathe out, your center. As you breathe in, you lift up. The elbows are moving towards the sides a little bit, but the fingers are still reaching towards each other. So the circle you're creating with the arms is just expanding a little bit, contracting a little bit. For all of these, we want really to be breathing through our nose. And as you're doing that, everything's moving apart at the same time, coordinated. So thinking about that triangle between the palms of your hands and the spot below your belly button as being still equilateral. For this one, it's nice to think about breathing into the back of the ribs, because that's where there's more space. The arms in this position, letting the back of the rib cage open up. And it's a meditation. We used to do this at the end of the qigong session. So we do other sets first, and this would be the meditation at the end to bring harmony to all the organs. So it's not about how many repetitions you do, it's about really getting into the feel of it. So I'd recommend at the start to have like a little meditation timer that makes a dong sound or something that's not going to rattle your nervous system or make you jump. And just set it for a minute, 90 seconds, something like that, and just work with each one for about that long. And then as you get better and you start to feel stronger in these positions, you can extend it. Okay. Extend it to 2 minutes, 5 minutes each. There's going to be a natural limit for wherever you're at. But depending on how much you like meditation, you can do with it as you will. Always remember though, when you're doing these sorts of practices, to take a moment to bring it back, ground yourself again, rest at the end, let your mind empty, don't attach to thoughts, give yourself a moment to feel your weight on the ground and breathe. Sizes. This one is the water phase. Along that same cycle, if you remember, metal controls wood, wood controls earth, earth controls water. Think of a lake. The water is contained within the earth. A river, the water is contained within the earth. therefore earth controls water. The correspondences are that the water phase or element is the kidney and bladder channel. The kidneys are particularly important in Chinese medicine because they govern our constitutional energy. That's the way we develop, age, come to fertility and sexual maturation, then ultimately decline and grow older. All the signs of aging are to do with the kidneys ultimately. So we always want to try and keep that together. One way I like to explain it, it's like the midnight oil. It's the idea that you're burning the midnight oil when you're working all night, working all day, not resting enough. The midnight oil is your kidney Jing, your kidney energy. Jing is a term that's like a condensed qi. The condensed qi is like the sort of almost solid stored qi. Then it gets activated for use in your body to transform things, and then in that process of transformation, the Shen, which is the mind spirit, is evolved. So we can only really affect the Qi directly by things we do, by things we eat, and medicines and whatnot. But the Shen is affected by that, and if we do that well, we don't draw on the reserves of Jing too much, and if we can do things that build the Qi, then the Jing can ultimately be replenished, or at least saved, which helps for health into longer life. So, as ever, setting up, we want our feet to be, our weight to be in the midfoot, just behind the ball of the big toe. The water element, qigong, we need a wider stance because it's going lower. So we start off where we finished with the earth phase. So this is triangle between the point below the abdomen and the palms of the hands. Expanding, contracting. As we breathe out, we're going to step wider and we're going to squat. Okay, simples. And we breathe in as we come up, and as we breathe out, we squat down. So I'm going to show you a few different variations actually, because not everyone has the mobility in the knees and ankles. But the point is that you're working the legs. And again with this one, because the arms are where they are, I want you to focus into breathing into the back of the rib cage. Breathing in as you're coming up, elbows are moving out, but the fingers are connected. Okay, see I'm going a bit lower. And ultimately, you don't want to go past 90 degrees at your knee. That's about the end, but you don't have to go that low if you find it too difficult. So going down. As we come up, the arms are expanding, breathing into the back of the rib cage, and as you breathe out and you're coming down again, the arms close a bit. Good. Also for this one, because our legs have to be slightly wider because we're squatting, it'd be natural to let the feet turn outwards slightly. You don't have to keep them completely parallel now. Feel where it is with your knees. Think about them being slightly laterally rotated, slightly turned outwards, and we want the knees to track over the feet. So don't let the knees come in as you're squatting, and then whichever place your knees need to go, make sure your feet are lined up with that. Okay? It will vary from person to person depending on your mobility. So again, down and up. Good. And coming to a close, I also ought to say that the tissue involved with the water phase is the bones. Again, that's like the deepest level, as I was saying about the kidney Jing being the deepest level. The colour black and the emotion of fear. So fear and shock. Fear is supposed to be a sign of deficient kidneys. If someone's overly fearful, it can mean that their kidneys are depleted. But also, if the person experiences shock or fright, that damages the kidneys. So if you've experienced some kind of shock or trauma and then you feel sort of weakened by it, that's one reason why. And why some of these exercises can be really useful to settle your nervous system down and help you move out of that situation and find your grounding again. So breathing at the end, feeling the weight going through your feet, breathing, centering, letting go of extra thoughts. So now we reach the fifth of our Qigong 5-phase series, which is fire. So along that cycle of control, water controls fire. And then you can see that joins up again because we started with metal, fire controls metal. Because how do we get metal? We need to use fire. We need to smelt rocks. We need to melt metals to make alloys. So that's the main thing that's going to control metal. All kind of makes sense. There are a few things when you look sort of deep into the theory that seem a little odd to the Western mind, but I think the controlling cycle makes sense. So, fire. Colour red. The organ associated with fire is the heart and also the small intestine. Each of these phases has both a yang organ and a yin organ. The yin organs are the ones I've been focusing on because they're considered to be more important in Chinese medicine, more about storage and more central to survival, whereas the yang organs, the fu, are things that process. They are also translated as the bowels, so they bring things in and then let them go. That's like the large intestine, small intestine, the stomach, the gallbladder, and the other one's called the sanjiao, which is an organ that also relates to fire by energetics, but doesn't have a direct anatomical relationship with an organ in Chinese medicine. A lot of people think of it as being like the torso tissue, because sanjiao means 3 burners, and the 3 burners are the upper burner, the middle burner, and the lower burner. They're kind of like the sections of our organs, if you like. And the sanjiao is written about as a system that distributes energy through the center. Okay, and so with this exercise, it's possible, you could say, when you look at the movement, it's more about the sanjiao than it is about the heart, but it's also going to help stimulate the heart. When you see the movement, I'll show you that the heart channel comes down this aspect of the arm, and in this move we're going to be stretching that a little bit. Anyway, that's perhaps a little bit esoteric. The main thing about this is it's closing the cycle of the 5 phases, and that when we're working on all these, we're working internally. It's a Nei Gong system, it's internal work, inner work, and we're balancing the different energies of the body, balancing the organs, and because it's going along the controlling cycle, what we're doing is we're organizing the energy. We're making each of the energies control the next so that they become balanced and even. Okay, so in that sense, this set can be applied to both emotional and psychological health and also physical health. I don't want to talk about where it's lacking in terms of things like strength training, because that's not really the point. This is a Nei Gong rather than a Dao Yin sort of practice. So it's more about the internal health and about energy levels and about the mind and spirit. That said, so fire, the heart, the Sanjiao, the colour red, the emotion is joy, which might seem strange being a problem, but sometimes there might be a lack of joy. It might be that someone has lost sense of joy, and that can be something that applying attention to the fire element could help. Or it might be inappropriate joy. It might be those sort of people who are perhaps a bit manic in their happiness or joyousness, or are ignoring other emotions and covering up, like letting their sort of joy overwhelm the other stuff, which again becomes an imbalance. It's okay not to be okay, you know, it's normal for us to have grief and fear and anger and all these other things that we often see as negative, if they're in an appropriate place and if they are expressed appropriately. Connective tissue here is blood, which makes sense for the heart. We don't always think of blood as a connective tissue, but even in Western medicine it is. And let's get into it. So we finished off the water phase with a wider stance. We can keep that wider stance for the fire phase. We were squatting. And as we transition, we're going to turn and we're moving the energy up and down between our hands. Again, thinking about a magnetism between the fingers. We're not just flapping, and we're breathing in as the arm comes up, we're breathing out as it goes down. We want the hand to not go higher than the shoulder and the lower hand not to go lower than the hip, again, the ASIS, the bone that sticks out the front of your pelvis. And you see here, I'm opening up that outside of the arm, the heart channel, opening the armpit where the heart channel starts, but I'm also rotating the body, which is going to stimulate the Sanjiao. And then we turn to the other side, shifting our weight. And here I want you to also think about breathing into the back of the rib cage. But because of the position of the arms, you'll feel it moving more on one side than the other. So we're getting a bit of a left-right different stimulation. Come back here. So 70% of my weight's now over the left leg. And I'm rotating the body towards the arms. Feeling the back of the rib cage expand, feeling like imagining magnets between my fingers as we work the energy. Come back to the other side. 70% of the weight over my right leg now. Body twisting. And there's no real rule about how many times you do this on each side or how many times you go up and down between shifting sides. Usually in qigong and Tui Na, we do things in sets of 8 or 9, because 8 is to do with good fortune and 9 is to do with longevity. So for this practice, it possibly makes sense to do 9. On each side. But in terms of your body and your awareness, it's more important that you really pay attention to where your weight is and your breath. So I'd still advocate you using a timer for a minute to 90 seconds or maybe 2 minutes per phase. That means you can get the whole lot done in 8 to 10 minutes, which is a nice little meditation break in anyone's day, or maybe first thing in the morning. It's a nice place to do it. And come back to centre. Find your root again, planting the feet, knees soft, focus on your centre, give yourself a couple of minutes, allow the thoughts to come and go.